Hi all, welcome again to Win Win Just for Kids. This time we are going to see the history of Tipu Sultan, the greatest warrior. A man with many names, Tipu Sultan, also referred as Tipu Sahib or Tiger of Mysore, is renowned for his bravery in the wars against British East India Company. Loved by many, Tipu Sultan is certainly the emperor remembered for various reasons, including his extraordinary tales of bravery and courage. His father Hyder Ali was an able soldier and won such a complete victory against an invading forces against Mysore in 1758 that Mysore was able to observe the greatest victories. As a result, Hyder Ali became the commander-in-chief of Mysore's army, later the Sultan, and by 1761 he was the outright ruler of the kingdom. While his father rose to fame and prominence, young Tipu Sultan was receiving an education from finest tutors available. He studied such subjects as riding, swordsmanship, shooting, Quranic studies, Islamic jurisprudence, and languages such as Urdu, Persian, and Arabic. Tipu Sultan also studied military strategy and tactics. The eldest son of Sultan Hyder Ali of Mysore, Sultan Fateh Ali Khan Sahib, was born on 20 November 1750. After assisting his father in the Battle of 1766 at the delicate age of 17, the Sultan was unstoppable. Notable quote of Tipu was, "To live like a lion for a day is far better than to live for 100 years like a jackal." In the era where rulers were fighting against each other, wanting to capture as much land as possible, Tipu was one of the Indian rulers who identified the British as the real threat to India. The first advancement against the British that Tipu Sultan made was when he encountered Colonel Bally and then defeated. The foremost victory for Tipu Sultan came when he defeated Colonel Brathwaite near Tanjore and then seized Chittor from the British. Tipu Sultan assumed power on December 29, 1782. First Anglo-Mysore War. During mid-18th century, British East India Company sought to expand its control of southern India by playing local kingdoms and principalities of one another. In 1767, British formed a coalition with Nizam and Marathas, and together they attacked Mysore. Hyder Ali managed to make a separate peace with Marathas, and then in June, he sent his 17-year-old son Tipu Sultan to negotiate with Nizam. In just 1 week, Tipu charmed the ruler of Nizam into switching sides and joining the fight against the British. Tipu Sultan then led a cavalry raid on Madras, but his father suffered a defeat by the British at Tiruvannamalai and had to call his son back. Hyder Ali decided to take an unusual step of continuing fight during the monsoon rains, and together with Tipu, he captured 2 British forts. Hyder Ali's army was besieging the third fort when British reinforcement arrived. Tipu and his cavalry held off British long enough to allow Hyder Ali's troops to retreat in good order. Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan then went on tearing the coast, capturing the forts and British held cities. They were threatening to dislodge the British from their key east coast of Madras when British sued for peace in March 1769. After this defeat, British had to sign a 1769 peace agreement with Hyder Ali called Treaty of Madras. Both sides agreed to return to their pre-war boundaries and come to each other's aid in case of any other attack by any other power. Second Anglo-Mysore War. The Second Anglo-Mysore War, 1780-1784, began when Hyder Ali led an army of 90,000 in an attack on the Carnatic, which was allied with Britain. The British governor decided to send the bulk of his army under Sir Hector Munro against Mysore, and also called for a second British force under Colonel William Bailey to leave Gundur and meet up with the main force. Hyder got the word of this and sent Tipu Sultan with 10,000 troops to intercept Bailey. In September 1780, Tipu and his 10,000 cavalry and infantry soldiers surrounded Bailey's combined British East India Company and inflicted on them the worst defeat. Hyder Ali sent Tipu Sultan and some cavalry to intimidate Munro. They did capture all of the British stores and baggage, but they did not attempt to seize Madras. The Second Anglo-Mysore War settled down into a series of sieges. The next significant event was on February 18, 1782, when Tipu attacked and defeated East Indian Company troops under Colonel Brathwaite at Tanjore. Brathwaite was completely surprised by Tipu and his attack, and after 26 hours of fighting, the British and their Sipais surrendered. Tipu on throne. While Second Anglo-Mysore War was still raging, 60-year-old Hyder Ali fell ill and died on December 7, 1782. Tipu Sultan took his father's crown and became a Sultan of Mysore on December 29, 1782. The British hoped that this transition of power would be less than peaceful so that they would have an advantage in the ongoing war. However, Tipu's smooth transition and immediate acceptance by the army thwarted them. In addition, British officers had failed to secure enough rice during the harvest, and some of their Sipais were literally starving to death. There were no condition for the English Sipais to launch an attack against the new Sultan during the height of the monsoon season. It was the fact that 18th century ruler of Mysore, Hyder Ali, developed the first prototype of sturdier explosive-filled rockets. Though rockets were used from 13th century, but they were all built with flimsy material like cardboard and were not very effective in inflicting damage on the enemy, similar to the modern day firecrackers. His innovation was further finely tuned by his son Tipu Sultan, who planned, designed, crafted cylindrical iron tubes that would allow for great compression of the gunpowder. Tipu then fastened them to the swords or bamboo poles to provide stability that wool in turn led to better accuracy. Thus, the predecessor of the modern rocket was born. It had greater range, better accuracy and far more destructive than any other rocket in use, making it the best in the world at that time. During Anglo-Mysore Wars at the late 1700s, these rockets were used by Tipu to great effect. They shocked British infantry, had never seen the likes of them before, and quite literally didn't know what hit them. Major Dairam, who was the Deputy Adjutant General of British Forces in India in 1793, later described the rockets used by Tipu's army as some of the rockets had a chamber and burst like shells, others called ground rockets had serpentine motion. On striking the ground, rose again and bounded along till their forces be spent. Third Anglo-Mysore War. Tipu Sultan had to face the British for a third time between 1789 and 1792. This time, Mysore would receive no aid from its usual ally. The British were led on this occasion by Lord Cornwallis, one of the major British commanders. The war lasted for several years. Unlike the past engagement, the British gained more ground than they gave. At the end of the war, after the British besieged Tipu's capital of Srirangapatna, the Sultan of Mysore had to capitulate. Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. By 1798, British had sufficient time to recover from the Third Anglo-Mysore War, and the new commander of British forces, Richard Wellesley, Earl of Mornington, was committed to a policy of aggression and aggrandizement. The British East India Company knew that Tipu Sultan was one of the greatest kings, standing between it and the total domination of India. A British-led coalition of nearly 50,000 troops marched towards Tipu Sultan's capital city of Srirangapatna in February 1799. Although the British sought to enclose Mysore state in the giant pincher movement, Tipu Sultan was able to sally out and stage a surprise attack early in March that nearly destroyed one of the British contingents before reinforcements showed up. Throughout the spring, British pressed closer and closer to the Mysorean capital. Tipu wrote to the British commander Wellesley trying to arrange for a peace agreement, but Wellesley deliberately offered completely unacceptable terms. After the beginning of May 1799, the British and their allies surrounded Srirangapatna, the capital of Mysore. Tipu Sultan had just 30,000 defenders matched against 50,000 attackers. On May 4, the British broke through the city walls. Tipu Sultan rushed to the breach but was killed defending his city.